Very good morning to everyone. We thank you for taking your personal time and being here today with us. I'm sure you will find this worthy. This is Afreen on behalf of Eastcourt Group. I welcome all of you for first of its kind webinar series, Week 4 on Fire Safety Security. This will be a 90-minute session, and I'm sure you all are excited and curious as well about this program. Please use Q&A and put in your questions or query. We have our CEO, Mr. Hemant Kharse, who will lead this session. We are also blessed with presence of Mr. Sanjay Pant, working as Head of Civil Engineering Department, Bureau of Indian Standards, New Delhi. Having around 30 years of experience in diverse areas of civil engineering and buildings, about 26 years of experience in the field of standardization in various civil engineering areas such as cement, cement concrete, cement matrix, products of various types, various flooring or roofing or walling, other building materials, prefabricated construction, structural safety, safety in construction, construction practices and management, buildings and facilities for persons with disability, planning and housing, National Building Code of India, water harvesting, energy conservation, sustainable development, etc. Another 4 years experience in the field of quality control, quality assurance, and third-party certification for various products used in civil engineering and building construction applications, including certification of cement, mineral admixtures, chemical admixtures, precast concrete products, and other cement matrix products, concrete reinforcement, wood-based building materials, sanitary appliances and fittings, building components, fixtures and hardware, portable fire extinguishers and other firefighting equipments and building materials. I'm sure you will find this session worthy. Let us begin this session with a small prayer.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदा शुभं कुरुत्वं आरोग्यं धनसम्पदा शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदा शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदा.
Good morning, everyone. Afreen, I'm audible?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm audible, Afreen?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to week 4 Build Bharat education webinar series that we have started on 26th of July. And I'm really glad that this is really shaping out very well in terms of spreading the knowledge and awareness amongst all the end users, customers, and who has been always carving for this kind of information where it's not usually available in the routine life what we have. Just to give you a quick significance, we start with lamp puja because this is the knowledge, and knowledge lamp is the symbolic image of knowledge. So we are trying to ignite that knowledge within your mind, or awakening your mind in terms of safety security, which is almost kind of a last priority in our professional life. We always been considered that safety security is a departmental activity. It is not my activity, although we can always see the fancy brochures, banners, designs in our plant facility building, but it doesn't inculcate from within, and we always consider that this is a departmental activity. So whole attempt of making this webinar series effective is to involve all the like-minded people, or I will say that safety aspirant people who consider that their life is also valuable, precious as somebody else. So we are picking up every topic every week when we see you. I'm going to recap you what has happened in first 3 weeks, those who missed out this session. But I'm really glad today we have a very learner and knowledgeable and very senior person in our group, Mr. Sanjay Pant, who is going to be also uh, throwing some light on the topic that is available today is codes and standard. So we are going to spend probably 90 minutes on this topic, how codes and standards are going to be important, what is their role as an end user, as a custodian of the facility. There are a lot of myths people carry, and we are trying to block those myths here by giving you clarity or getting you clarity. What is the purpose of the codes and standard? How effectively that can be used for your making your system more efficient, more effective. So this is what whole attempt of this session. Just to give you a quick recap what has happened. We started this webinar series focusing on only customers. Reason being is that they are the one who needs to know, because they are the one who owns the system. Secondly, it is the survey that shows that more than 50% of SME industries have common resources. When I say common resources, that means the person responsible for security also is expected to start the pump, fire pump, also expected to take care of the safety of people within their factory or building, or vis-a-vis. Maybe there is a EHS person who is also been asked to look after fire and life safety of that particular facility, and so as security also being sometime offered to the common resources. So it is always that at least two functions, either fire and safety or security and safety, are merged with one resources. We also learned that when we appoint those resources, we appoint those resources with a constraint that maybe the business is not uh, viable or affordable to have dedicated resources as such. So why not one? I'm not saying who is right or wrong, but all I'm making a point here, and which I've already explained in the first week, is organization making an effort, or is that individual making an effort to upgrade and upscale his skill in learning what is the gap in his mind? Designation doesn't mean that he is competent or she is capable. It's all about the mindset that people carry, that if I'm responsible for these two functions or three functions, how I'm going to be doing that job with a purpose. So when we distributed this 25-week webinar series covering these three topics, fire, safety, security, I did mention in the first week itself that 2-3 weeks we are going to spend only on the first circle, which is what, how, and why. And that's in this week is we are going to be entering into new circle, which is codes and standard. But just to give you a quick cap on what has transpired in the three sessions, is that we all know that it's very vital element of the organization as fire, safety, security, but we try to look for why it is so important. We also looked at it that safety doesn't go from ground level, it is always come from top. And when we say top, it doesn't mean that you just sign the EHS policy or safety policy, paste it on the entrance of the building or a plant, and we expect people to follow that. I have come across many big industries where the signatories of the policy holder also is not aware or fully aware or conversant with the terminology or spirit of that policy. It is a fact. Because somebody is driving that mission of following the OSHA's standard, the paper comes to your table as an EHS policy, somebody else as a consultant drafts that policy and we get it signed, we paste it and we feel happy that this company or my company has got a EHS policy. So when I mean to say that the culture comes from top, it basically what conversation you have on a daily basis, what commitment you have on a daily basis, how we are going to demonstrate that leadership on a daily basis in terms of safety and security makes a lot of difference. And we also looked at the science of how that conversation gets transformed into results. And many of the industries or industry do not focus on spiritual aspect of it. There is a science behind it. People consider that functional or technical aspects are more critical, are only important element for upgrading and upscaling, but it is not. This is why we are adding the element here as a spiritual or energy component here. So how your conversation on the top is getting transferred to the worker level or a staff level or occupant level in terms of creating that awareness. If chalta hai attitude is there on the top, it will be always, everyone in the facility will also carry the same spirit chalta hai, and which is very, very common in India. When people are doing various roles and responsibility, as I mentioned in the beginning, that people still carry that this activity is a departmental activity. I have a safety manager. I have a corporate safety management. And I mean, I didn't understand the logic if there's a person sitting in head office, maybe Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, and all the facilities all around the spread across the national level, how that safety element is going to go to the worker level or a staff level. So you can't have only a safety officer to be accountable for safety. It is the culture, it is the DNA of every person that he or she should consider that as a safety officer within their mind. That only transforms the organization in terms of culture. And what it makes is a purpose in your role. Even if you are making a disaster management plan, it's a departmental activity. It's a KRA that if I don't do this, I may not get an increment. If that is the spirit of the disaster management plan, then it always remains on the file and it will never percolate to the each and every corner of the facility. So you have to identify what's my purpose in doing every task that I'm doing when it comes to safety and security. And when your purpose is defined, that I have this role, it is not my choice, it is somebody else's choice on the universe, and I'm just doing my role not only to secure my life, it is to secure somebody else's life. If that mindset is there, then probably each action plan, each document, each activity that you do will have a meaningful activity. We also looked at what are the learning management system that organizations do follow. But training is no more just a tool that you can think of which will transform the organization. You have to really go to the level up in terms of education. So education is little more broader terms. We also discussed about how this education can actually bring that change in the mind of the people. And education is not just like a external or a momentary act. It has to really work on spirit of your person. I always give an example of the person who is driving harsh in the facility where you expect that a 30 km/h label or a speed breaker will help him to reduce the speed and avoid the accident. Rather, you work on a driver mindset that he or she, that person who is driving in the facility, making him responsible so that in case he does any rash driving, it is going to impact somebody else's life. We also looked at the experience part, and most of the cases in India, we always learn from experience. Yeah. When the accident happens, then we try to work on how it can be mitigated, how it cannot be damage to the property or the public in future. Right. When the event occurs, then our eyes gets open up, and then we start thinking, creating systems, processes, equipment, compliances, everything that comes only in the in case any event happens in your facility. So what's your learning system, learning management systems? You need to see that how your organization can sustain in terms of those education, expert, and experiences combination of all three things. Yeah. The spiritual aspect that I have covered, when I mention spiritual, it is nothing to do with the religious. When I mean spiritual, is basically working on your mind, body, soul. It has nothing to do with any religion here when I mention about spirituality. But today, and specifically this corona period, has actually given a lesson to everyone, all the professionals in the industry, that you need to look for that element. What is my spiritual quotient? We always work on intelligent quotient and emotional quotient as such, but spiritual quotient is the one that is a requirement. And if you really have to make a transformational change in your organization, not waiting for an event to happen and then you restart the process, it's the spiritual change that you need to see within your organization. So we looked at a very innovative concept which is called fear of missing out. People always go for compliances because of some fear, because somebody is following, because somebody is not following. So any act that you do by looking at outward is FOMO, fear of missing out. This will never give you happiness. This will always keep you on toes. It will create an anxiety in your mind that, thank God, बाजू वाले में एक्सीडेंट हुआ, मेरे कंपनी में एक्सीडेंट हुआ, because I got only extinguisher to survive. Unfortunately, I don't have anything more than extinguisher, but thank God last 20 years nothing happened. But you will always have that guilty mind that in my facility there are 50 workers working. Their life is also equally important than my life. Their family is also important like my family, but I'm still compromising for their safety because I do not have enough measures to secure their life. So another aspect that we looked at is JOMO, which is joy of missing out, where I'm not looking at outward, I'm looking at inward. If my ethics are very strong and my governance is strong, I do not want to compromise on any kind of compliances which are mandatory. I will go for fire NOC. I will go for all the rules which are applicable for factory. I will apply and get all the clearances which is required for critically for my running my business. In that case, I'm not worried. I have always a peace of mind, and that real joy comes in when you have that mindset of doing every activity, looking at inward. You are protecting your facility for protecting your property and life, not by looking at that hotel building or that school building or that high-rise building do not have sprinkler. Why should I have a sprinkler? You should be worried about your facility more than somebody else, and that's how that journey takes you to destination. It's called JOMO. So this is what till now we discussed. I thought I'll brush up quickly in a few minutes so that nobody miss out. Any questions so far we have on this topic? You can always raise a hand. We can take those questions. Any questions? No questions? Okay. So let me just get back to the topic. It's codes and standard. It looks technical term. Most of the people will raise eyebrows. What is this codes and standard for me? I have a safety manager looking after my safety. How does it matter to me? It's a consultant job. It's a contractor job. Why should I get involved in codes and standard? Yeah. So we are going to have this session more interactive. Let me just have the poll here, wherein we will just raise the question, and I want to just get a feedback from you in terms of getting those answers. So let me just have this question. Now you can see, Afrin, can you see the questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So please take 10-second time here in just clicking one option. What is code? It is a standard, it is a set of regulation, or it is a set of rule. Click on one option quickly. Second question, is NFPA a code, a regulation, a standard, all of three, or only one and three above? Yeah. So we'll just wait for 5 more seconds and we are all set. Very good. A lot of people are answering it. Still, there are a few more to answer. It's not complex question. Just use your gut feel. Click on one option and we are all go. Done. So let me just end this poll here. And I'm going to be sharing the results here. So you can see the results. First question, what is code? 31% people consider that it is a standard. 38% people consider that it's a regulation, and 31% people consider it's a rule. It's really catch 21 situation. Equal, right? So it's all three group divided into three group. Very interesting. Second question, is NFPA? I'm sure many people are aware, many people are not aware, so we'll get them. What is NFPA? National Fire Protection Association is the full form of this. 8% people consider it's a code, 2% people consider it's a regulation, 8% people consider it's a standard, and 38% consider it's all of the above, and only 31% consider it's one and three above. Yeah. So very good. I'm really glad uh, that the real gaps are coming in. Yeah. It's not just one way. It's a real gap which is really showing up this question, and it's sort of a very straight question. So thank you so much for your sharing this poll. I'm stopping this poll, and let me just go back to the topic now. Very interesting. And the whole session that is totally driving on these four terms. First term is code. Now let us understand code. When it comes to fire safety security, there are written codes available in every element, be it fire extinguishers, be it your sprinkler systems, be it your emergency management systems. There are at least 300 plus codes written only in NFPA. I'm sure there are equal numbers of code which I think we will listen from Mr. Pant available in India as well. But essentially, let us understand, codes are going to give you the general philosophy. In layman term, it is going to tell you what you need to do in your life. If I have a school building, how do I protect my school building? Go to any of the code, probably you can find an answer. Yeah. So it is just to give you a general guideline, and code is not a standard. Standard itself is a different term has a different meaning, has a different purpose. But it is all dependent. Code leads to your standard because standards will give you an answer. When I know that I'm a school building, I know my requirements, how I'm going to fulfill that requirement, go to the standard. If it is hydrant systems, standards to be referred for the hydrant system to design my hydrant system for a school building. What is the spacing required? What's the height required? What's the capacity required? What's the discharge required? What's the water capacity? Everything will be given in a standard. But code is code, standard is standard. Both are totally different terms altogether. And for your information, NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, which is an international organization, US organization, NGO, body, has got a codes, has got a standard. The third term, before I get into the specification, let me talk about regulation here. What is regulation? Regulation is basically coming from a government body as a statutory legal requirement to follow, where you do not have a choice not to implement, because otherwise your water electricity will get cut. Your permissions or clearances will get obstructed. So regulation is a term that has been used in the industry, which is nothing but a requirement which is going to be a binding or a mandatory requirement. Code is not a mandatory requirement, it's just a voluntary guideline. Standard is a guideline. Regulation is a mandatory requirement. And specifically it is coming from the government body, where it is complied to your facility so that you can run the operations. The fourth element that we are going to be talking about here is specification, which is not a khichdi, but making a gist of course and standard applicable, even regulation applicable, and derive a philosophy, a way forward for your facility. What ultimately I'm going to implement. If there is a hydrant systems, do I refer a local code? Do I refer international code? Do I refer this best practice, or do I refer I should go beyond my code? Code is always a minimum set of criteria. It is a written rule that codes will give you a basic minimal criteria, because codes have been generated based on the evaluation, based on the experiences. So they can't generally mention as an outer limit. They always come up with a minimum criteria guideline. Specification is the one that will be derived based on your risk, based on your facility, based on your judgment, based on your interpretation of the code, and come up with a battery limit saying that I'm going to be just at the code level, or I'm going to be going beyond code level. Clear? So this is a very, very fundamental element that people need to be aware, and people need to be understanding very clearly, because I get a lot of questions, and most of the two questions that I get from the client when I interact as a business contract purpose. First question, which is very common, show me where it is written. Then only I will open my eyes. Second question, is it mandatory? If it is mandatory, I might motivate to do it. If it is not mandatory, I might not even do it. So we need to just come out of these two questions very clearly. Is when you're referring code, it's not mandatory. It's just a guideline to follow and make sure that your life is going to be safe, secure. Yeah. So let me come back to you a little more time, and then maybe we can switch over to Mr. Pant, understanding from his body and what is their role in terms of codes and standards. So let me just quickly wrap it up this session before we go to Mr. Pant. We all know that NBC, which is in India, National Building Code, which is the building code available for fire, even part 4, which is the specifically dedicated for fire code, for fire systems, fire and life safety systems. So that's a code. Internationally, if you just go, or a global practice, NAPA 101 is the built fire code for that matter. So these are the codes which will give you answer in terms of general, what are my requirement. So specifically when it comes to fire and life safety, these are the two Bible. And you can find an answer. Any occupancy, any facility that you have, most of the questions will get answered. Although I'm not saying that it is complete book or complete this thing. There are a lot of innovation happens. NBC 2016, which has come after a gap of 11 years. 2005 was the before prior edition. 2016 now came in existence after a gap of 11 years. Now we don't know when it is going to be upgraded, but usually NFPA, they upgrade periodically based on any incidences, based on any learnings, based on any professional input that they see. They keep on upgrading it. They're always working on it. But India, with our constant, we do not have that frequency regularly. But as of now, at least you have something to refer, which will open your eyes, which will give you a clarity in terms of way ahead, what I'm going to do it. Now, when it comes to standard, it gets replaced with a document like NFPA 92 for a smoke control system, NFPA 13 for sprinkler system, NFPA 10 for extinguishers, NFPA 16 for likewise, there are 150 plus standards available only within NFPA. I'm sure the number would be higher. So as in India as well. So there is a difference between codes and standard. Code will give you what, standard will give you how. And we need to make use of both to make sure that your path is clear. Codes, as I mentioned to you, it's a legally and ethically considered to be as a minimum criteria document. Because you can't expect that the school building in Mumbai can be equating to the Latur. But if you have to drive a general requirement for a school, you need to equate both a Latur school and a Mumbai school. Yeah. So that's how it has been derived as a generic requirement, but you need to see that how effectively you can use it or whether you can go beyond codes. Vis-a-vis standards, it will give you detailed rules, procedures, guidelines, what is the spacing required, what is the density required, what is the water capacity required, what is the pumping requirement, how this can be managed, what's the maintenance requirement. Everything will be spelled out very clearly in standards, respective, and every system has got a standard. In India, I can tell you, you will hear from Mr. Pant, amazing. You have got a very, very fundamentally, clearly guideline available to follow your systems or create your systems. Let's go deeper. Let's understand the difference here clearly between building code, model code, and production standard. And let's look at in a local perspective and a global perspective. When you are referring building codes, we always refer NBC, National Building Code, as the building code for us to refer as a reference point. Vis-a-vis, International Building Code can be also be applicable if you want to apply for a global practice. Second component, which is very important to know, is what is a model code. Model code is nothing but kind of a book or a mechanism that how my system is going to be laid out. So technically it can be standard, but then it is nothing but a model code. If there are extinguishers, how my extinguishers are being laid out. If I have a sprinkler system, how sprinkler system can be laid out. How the design will be, what is the basis of it, what's the parameter I need to consider. Everything that comes as a model code. And third comes as basically product standard, which is related to specifically product. So when you are manufacturing a sprinkler, when you are manufacturing a fire hose or hydrant, what is my understanding to make sure that see that all hydrants are equal or the quality that I get is equal. So you have a lot of product standards locally available and internationally. In India, we call as a ISI marked for anything, whether it's the electrical atom or any life prevention atom. We always have the ISI mark rating there. So that's authentication of quality and efficiency of a product. So this is what understanding that you need to have. And when you are referring this, you are actually trying to look for an answer for a designing of a system, installation of a system, and maintenance of a system. The third element is very important. We miss out on third element, maintenance. We always focus that product standards and that's about it. Or maximum we look at the design standard, that's about it. But maintenance are also been very, very crucially and elaborately mentioned in every standard. There are hundreds of features or benefits which I can talk about it when it comes to standard. But just to give you a glimpse of it, as an organization, you can always get benefited when you follow standard. And we'll go deeper dive in the session. But at the same time, if you're a manufacturer, you also have got a lot of leverage and benefits following the standards. You can reduce cost, improve efficiency. You really work on a plan which is already proven. So standard is already there available to protect your facility or manufacturing a product, which is going to be at acceptable quality level, which will ensure the safety. And it becomes consistent model, because when you see a hose in Bombay, the same hose is available in Bangalore, Chennai, and Latur. And when you have that quality, the customer confidence is also going to be higher and higher, because you see uniformity in everywhere. A firefighter person who is going to be qualified and certified holding the hose, whether he remains in any of the location, any other part of the world, he has absolutely no problem, because he has tried and tested exactly the same quality, which is following the standard. And of course, there are many commercial advantages also. You can go and market anywhere, you can sell anywhere, there is no boundary. So there are a lot of commercial advantages also following the standard, right? So we are probably looking at many terms: rules, regulation, act, law, and constitution. Yeah, I will come to that point separately, but let me request Mr. Pant, who is going to be here today, uh, sharing the knowledge and experience as a Bureau of Indian Standard Civil Engineering head. So let me ask the opening question to Mr. Pant on behalf of everyone here. What is the role of Bureau of Indian Standard? We all know that they generate the codes and standard, but there are a lot of myth people carry. So let me request Mr. Pant to share his vision as a head of the body, and how we can enlighten, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Hemant. I think I'm not allowed to share a video right now. Anyway,
I will allow you, sir, if you want. I'll just get to that.
I think you have already shared substantially. I think your knowledge of standards and standardization is quite up to date. So I am happy that as an extended arm of BIS, you are working, sharing the or spreading the message of standards. Well, I welcome everybody to this session. But I will try to little bit elaborate on what Mr. Hemant has already shared with you on various aspects. Very aptly he mentioned it is what, why, and how. So what means, what is the sort of objective that you have to meet in terms of quality, and why that is important, and how you are going to actually ensure that. When you come to what, then you have to specify benchmarks. When you say how, you have to specify the practices, good practices. Those are codes of good practices. And why is the reasoning? That's why we debate, to understand why. So sometimes there are explanatory handbooks to explain why a particular provision and why a particular requirement has really been specified. So I therefore start from there. First of all, what is standardization all about? We every day face a lot of problems in giving solutions to various issues. When you have large number of issues which are repetitive in nature, so you need not every day try to find solution for that. You should have a ready solution. Some of the people, for example, I'll say, some of you would attach yourself or your office with the kind of example that I'm going to give is there are some people who are coming late to the office and they have some every day, and that has happened for years together, and they have some reason every day. So it is a repetitive problem which they have failed to resolve, but some others have resolved. They have standardized solution for that. So they have followed, they have fixed a standard when they should get up in the morning, what should all it is possible to do before you get ready and leave for office, and every time they manage, and every time they come timely. So they have a solution. So they have standardized a solution, not that every day they have to struggle with it. And if they know that there is a traffic, it is going to increase in particular days of the week, they know what is to be done on those particular days. So standards are really the solution to the repetitive problems. But once, if it is a problem once in a while it comes, then it's called adventure. And for adventure you don't need standards, so adventure is adventure. You won't enjoy an adventurous trip if you give a solution for everything to be on as per the specification. So that is the difference between a standard and adventure. And standards, how everybody can use standards in their daily life, in their daily practices in the industry. And that's what standardization all about. Now standards has got different levels, and different subjects and different aspects. If we say subject, these can be on civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electrotechnical engineering, IT, fire and life safety. It could be on smart cities. So there can be various subjects which can be attributed for the purpose of standardization. So, and then the second level is what has been explained is aspects. Uh, Aspects are specifications, test methods, glossary of terms, symbols and notations, and codes of practices or guidelines or recommendations. So these are various aspects of standards. As already explained, specifications are the basic core. They specify, they prescribe what should be the minimum dimension, what should be the chemical requirement, what should be the physical requirement, what should be the mechanical or mechanics of the material or the product. So the or specification of anything. So when you are trying to define or prescribe or specify certain things, products or activity, then it is called specification. So for example, IS 15683 is the specification for fire extinguishers. IS 269 is specification for ordinary Portland cement. And similarly, IS 1786 is specification for high yield strength deformed bars. These are, they specify. 8931 is for water fitting. So these are specifying. And when they specify a product, these are called product specification, and product specification in turn are certifiable. Okay, and one more thing, when you specify things, you can specify in terms of prescriptions or performance, or a judicious mix of prescriptions and performance. So far, for years together, since 1947, when the Bureau of Indian Standards came to being, we had specified mostly prescriptive specification, and slowly, and this was the order worldwide also, and slowly we have moved to a mix of performance and prescription. For example, I'll tell, a prescription is, we say, use timber specific, teak as a timber for, say, door frame. And then we specify, these are inherent specifications, the teak. We say thickness of door. This is a prescriptive. But if you say it should have 50 slammings, continuous slammings, or 5,000 slammings of this force, and it should withstand, that is a performance based. So it is best in the current scenario that we have a mix of prescription and performance specification. Prescriptive specification easy to evaluate. You can just measure certain properties and you say it conforms to the prescribed product specification. So this is all about specification. But specifications cannot be evaluated with different methodologies. So your methods for evaluation, analysis and test methods have also to be standardized. So the second aspect of standardization is, or standards, is test methods or methods for analysis, against which the standards are the materials or products or systems are tested for evaluation for ensuring conformity. The third is code of practice. The code of practice or recommendations or guidelines are codes of good practices. Code of practices or good practices for installation, for laying, for finishing, for manufacturing, for demolition, for anything when you are trying to do something, which are the best method of doing. So codes of good practices to do certain things uh, uh, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of installation, in terms of ensuring safety. No, so this is the third. Then there are other kinds of standards also devoted to only, for example, definitions or terminology or glossary of terms or definition standards. There are symbols, standards for symbols, notations. There can be standards only devoted to safety standards, devoted to systems. Those are system standards, like management system standards. So, but code of practice is the most comprehensive type of standard, which may include specifications also, which may encompass sometimes specification, sometimes it will give cross reference to other specification, and it may also have at time test methods also. It may have definitions also. If there are definitions for number of products, for example, there can be a separate standard on definition. Otherwise, these can be a part of all these categories of standard itself. Similarly, test methods can be separate. If you have 15 varieties of cement, you need not have the same test method included in the all same product specification. So you have a standard on test methods, physical testing and chemical testing of cement. Therefore, there can be separate standards, but these standards can also be a part of the basic standard, that is specification or code of practice. So this is the all about standards. Now again, the next area that we must understand is levels. We have understood the subject of standardization. It can vary from all economy or engineering. Second, we have understood the aspects of the standards in terms of specification, code of practice, method of test, and glossary of terms and all those things. The third aspect is levels. An artisan of Bihar or Jaipur or Maharashtra have individual standards. We need not separately standardize a common, you have to have a Tassar or a Banarsi sari. They are individual standards, need not be standardized into the same frame. So these are individual standards. Then there are company standards. So as he told, there are standards within the company, beyond what is given in the national standard. The third can be association level of standards. And the fourth can be the national standards, and fifth regional standard, and the last is international standards. So these are various levels of standardization. The Bureau of Indian Standards is the national standards body of India by virtue of such a mention which has been given in the Bureau of Indian Standards Act 2016. And what we make is called Indian standards. There are other bodies like Indian Roads Congress, RDSO, Ministry of Railways, and there are other bodies also, OISD, Oil Industry Safety Director, other bodies, Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, they also make standards. But those cannot be called as Indian standards. The Indian standards are those standards which are formulated in National Standards Body, which is BIS, as given in the BIS Act 2016. So this is the kind of difference. But others are also standards, and these can have different levels, as I explained. Now, the third important aspect that he has mentioned is regarding the status of standards. These standards, as compared to the regulations, these may be voluntary in nature. By BIS Act, every standard formulated, standard may be a specification, code of practice, test method, all are voluntary in nature, as prescribed in the Bureau of Indian Standards Act. These may become mandatory under three conditions. First, through a contract between two parties or multiple parties. So that is one way the standards become mandatory among the parties based on the contract and as per the contract, and it can be challenged in the court of law. That is one. Second is the standards become mandatory through a reference in a legislation. If a Mines Act says the helmets shall be in accordance with IS 2925, industrial specification for industrial safety helmets, then it becomes mandatory for compliance for all mines activities as per the Mines Act and to the limitations which have been prescribed in the Mines Act. That is the second way. The third is through a special quality control order, special orders of the Government of India or maybe the state government. Such orders are in vogue, number of them. For example, cement quality control order. There is a quality control order for steel products. There is quality control order for thermometer, for pressure regulator, for LPG, and for electrical appliances. Wherever there is a mass consumption, consumers can be cheated, or there is a safety requirement, or there is a so these aspects enable the government to transform from voluntary to mandatory standard from these three areas. That is through a contract, number one. Number two, by reference in a legislation. And number three, through a special order of the Government of India. Such orders are normally called quality control orders. So these are the three. Now coming to the specific subject, what now Mr. Hemant has mentioned today is on safety and particularly fire safety. Now safety, see, every subject can be divided into subdivisions, but safety is safety ultimately. It has to be understood, to safety to the life and property ultimately. Safety in the event of a disaster. Disaster can be man-made, disaster can be natural. So what are the pillars of safety around which the entire ecosystem is formulated? Is structural safety, fire safety, health safety, and public safety. Structural safety, you understand. There are various loads, dead loads, imposed load, wind load, snow load, vibration load, temperature load, load because of cyclonic winds, load because of vibration near maybe a metro or railway corridor. These can be loads because of vehicles striking a stilt of a building, or it can be the helipads where helicopters are required to land. There can be various kinds of roads which may come because of multi disasters. Also, there are certain roads, and you have seen in now even in Mumbai you have issues of landslides. So these are loads because of soil pore pressure. And so there are different types of loads to be withstand. So all these have to be met through what is called is structural safety. So that is one kind of safety, and it has to meet the load which are inherent because of the type of building and because of the climate around and because of the location. So there is a seismic zonation map of India in the National Building Code. There is a wind zonation map of India. There is a temperature isothermal map, and there are moisture map. All these specify as to where is your location, what kind of basic wind speed or the zone factor of earthquake you have to take. So these are structural safety aspects. Second aspect is man-made, is fire safety. Fire safety has to be ensured because today's buildings are taller and taller. These are complex in nature. There is a huge amount of complex services involved. So, and therefore vulnerability to fire has increased much more. So it has to be ensured. As you would have already learned, or you might be learning in the subsequent classes, the fire safety has to be ensured through fire prevention, life safety, and fire protection. By having a built environment which is fire resistant rated, where propagation of fire is discouraged, and when it is ensured that the type of construction type 1 to 4 as per the NBC is ensured, then it will give sufficient time for people to exit. And then therefore second aspect comes is life safety. Life safety again is a science in terms of it explains the evacuation of people through the mode where the three terms are very important: exit access, exit, and exit discharge. Exit access is a place where you function, that is functional area. And from functional area, somebody may be selling drapery, clothes, so you cannot maybe for furniture, or you may require from acoustical point of view certain wood and other area, so it cannot be made fire resistant. It is a functional area. but there is a requirement of travel distance to reach timely to the exit, which is 2 hour fire resistant rated. Now, once you reach exit, you are safe. So you should reach timely to the exit. Then there are requirements for exit. The third is from exit within the time available. The entire population of the built facility should go to outside to a area of comparative safety, which is called exit access. So this is all about fire safety. You can of course go into detail. And the third aspect in from fire protection, fire prevention, life safety, the third aspect is fire protection. That is installation of portable or first aid and fixed firefighting installations. So, and this entire gamut of type of building, number, height of the building, number of floors, the covered area, based on which what are the portable fixed fire installation called for is given in table 7 of NBC 2016. The, after fire safety, there is another issue of health safety. The occupant who are staying, occupying or working or visiting the facility. So their health safety, whether it is a hazardous building or it is a residential building or institutional building or business building or office building, health safety is important in terms of lighting, ventilation, indoor air quality and indoor environment quality, and water supply, drainage and sanitation. These all define what is called health safety. And indoor air quality is in terms of lighting, ventilation, as well as the quality of air conditioning if it is an air conditioned building. So we have to understand the third pillar of safety, structural safety, fire safety and health safety. And including the acoustic sound insulation, noise control. There are people who are working in a very noisy atmosphere, so their safety is also very equally important. How to ensure that, how the vibration control with the proper foundations of machines, and noise containment has to be ensured at building level, and noise abatement at township level has to be ensured. The fourth aspect is public safety. Public safety for the users. They are using electrical installation, they are using the auditorium, they are using various lifts, escalators and moving walks, and there are accidents happening through shock, through lightning falling on the buildings, through people are getting trapped in the lifts, and they are different, the kind of atmosphere that they find is not conducive to health. For example, in air conditioning, there is a term called sick building syndrome. So you have to understand all these nuances of public safety are going to use facility. So these four pillars of safety: structural, fire, health, and public safety, which includes environmental safety also. Safety which is effects that you are causing to environment, which in turn in terms also becomes a public safety. That is another aspect of safety on which the entire your study can be rotated around. Now the next very important aspect which Mr. Hemant has touched, I must try to explain it. There are Indian standards, and whether they should be revised very frequently, and what is the ecosystem of standardization elsewhere. He talked about the NFPA. Internationally, if you say in America, there is an international building code. In their arrogance, their building code, they call international building code. There is nothing international about it. It gives the national standards across reference. In America, there is no government standardization body. There is one body called American National Standards Institute, ANSI, and it doesn't make a standard. It coordinates standards making by whether it is FM Global or American Society for Civil Engineers, ASE, American Society for Mechanical Engineer, or Steel Association, Development Association, or NFPA, and all those things. So these other bodies, they make multiple standards. On the same subjects, a lot of standards are made by different bodies. So IBC at International Building Code, as it is called, it selects which standard to be cross-referred in the International Building Code. But all these standards are not approved by ANSI. These have to get the accreditation and as a standard developing organization, that is SDOs, from ANSI. So ANSI is some they apply for accreditation into ANSI. ANSI accredits some of these standards if they wish to. So that is the ecosystem. There is no all standards by private. There is American Concrete Institute, American Piping Institute, American Civil Engineers, American Society for Civil Engineers, Mechanical Engineers, Steel-based institute, concrete-based, material-based institute, discipline and profession-based institutes, and all those things, and safety-based institute also. So their system is entirely different. Their certification is also different. So this is their ecosystem. We are working in our ecosystem. Even after we revise our building code or concrete code or steel design code, people say that you should have waited for some more time. We are yet to accustomed with the previous. And it is because see, Americans or their system, they have created a lot of codes, good body of codes out there, but they done maximum damage to safety in terms of environmental safety, creation of ozone hole. Fortunately, because their standardization is driven by funding from the industry, and therefore standards, they promote use of machinery. For example, they will create a ozone hole first, then they will give solution. So fortunately, we were not party to this environmental hazard at international level. They have affected the entire planet in terms. So we have to be very cautious. More number of standards, greater pace of standards sometimes is damaging, because that is to promote certain industry for certification and marketing of their product in the name of energy conservation, environmental safety, green building, or there are different certification systems which they promote for their profession. So we have to be very careful. I think with that note, I just try to explain the gamut of standardization. I think it will bring little bit clarity to the entire system. Thank you, Mr. Hemant. Thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Lovely. It is so insightful, knowledge that you shared today, and this is a real gap in the industry. People do not have that visibility or clarity in terms of understanding what is the code and standard, and that's how we play in that darkness, and then we compromise on safety as such. So, thank you so much.
One more thing that you can explain to them, that under entry number 35 of Schedule 7 of Constitution of India, construction is a state subject. So whatever being constructed in the country has to be regulated by the state or the local body. There is a 74th Constitutional Amendment Act where there is a Schedule 12 to the Constitution. There are 18 entries, as per which in the urban areas, the entire regulation is to be done by the local body, urban local bodies itself, through its Town Country Planning Act, Development Act, and local building bylaws. And therefore, NBC or standards are voluntary in nature. These are regulated through adoption in the local building bylaws and the state regulations.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
For guiding us. Let me just go back to the the presentation that we left it. I'm sure this insight definitely helped everyone here in today in the room. So let's continue the discussion. So far we have got a lot of ideas, information on understanding codes and standard, but again, let's not mix up all the other terms that are also associated with it. So rules is the one that is again can be guideline. So that can be again locally specified, can be company wise at the association level, at the national level. Regulation will come from the statutory body, specifically from government bodies. Acts is part of the regulations. So acts is specifically that is a notification that can be legally bound to the owners or facility owners or manufacturers, which is going to be a legal requirement. Law is again a legal requirement, can be followed, can be specified, that's it, and that's how constitution becomes. So all three are very, very interrelated. But all I'm saying is that on top of it, what is important is here, what is your moral standard, which is again a missing link. So I always believe in this, that you can always find the loopholes in the system and find that what is the easy route for you or what is a shortcut for you. Unless until you are really work on a moral responsibility or moral standard more, you'll not be able to do that. Let's understand also this aspect in terms of fire safety security. What are the key enablers? Now we all know that fire is more predominantly on a codes of practice level, so that's a driving factor, because it's a well written, well established, well codes and standards available to refer and benchmark or implement your safety systems as such. So that's a very strong enabler for fire and life safety. Regulatory also is equally enforced or strong in nature, but society for that matter element is very weak, because people don't consider that I need to have a fire safe life on its own. It's not that socially kind of an element that is driving fire and life. It is more on a codes of practice and regulatory perspective. But when you look at the safety, which is more broader, and say fire can be part of safety, like what exactly Pansar have mentioned, safety, that is all our general safety, structural safety, all your public safety, fire and life safety is part of it. Therein, regulatory is become more stronger factor, also the codes of practice, but society is again a weak factor here. But in terms of security, if you look at it, society makes more prominent there, because that's a need of the society to have my property security or facility security as such. So that's a more prominent factor in driving security systems as such. Regulatory is again a little medium, and course of practice is very low, because it's not driving factor. It's not that enabler, I would say, when it comes to security for codes of. But of course there are codes also written available in terms of security, like NFP also has got NFP 730 or 731, I guess. There are FEMA, there are a lot of rules available, there are a lot of practices available, but that's not that popular. What is driving factor today in India, specifically for a country like India, it's more society driven, and then less codes of practice driven. So these are the some thoughts. We also discussed about the integration or interdependent activity of fire and safety and security. Although security is little shift in that, but ultimately if you look at the security, what do you mean by security is enforcing safety in you, like that. Like last week I mentioned that example of Gaya. When I was there, people were safe, local people, but I being a visitor there, I may not be safe, feeling safe in the night environment. So that's all about what's the stage. It's all about the state that you are in, and security is nothing but an enforcing safety in you. So these are all important aspects that you need to take into consideration. But why I'm bringing this point here is that when you know that there are different specific codes and standards available for fire, safety, and security, when it comes to implementation, how this can happen. So there is no code which is going to be integrating all three. Now uh, there is a trend coming in where integration is going to be also addressed by the codes and standard when it comes to all fire, safety, security, but still it's not matured way. So that is the job where you need to do at your own, deriving your own specification standard, how I'm going to be integrated. Like example, you have a sprinkler system, you have flow switch which is connected to the fire alarm system, and maybe you have got certain access control system which needs to be de-energized in case of fire. So there is always communication required between security and fire. So likewise, you can see that there are many activities which are a need of the project, but may not be addressed specifically in one standard. So that is the one that you need to find a gap. You need to address that gap, and how can you do that? That's your challenge. Some of the myth people still carry, and some of the correct interpretation people carry. So let me just address quickly there. Also, I want to give time to question and answer, so I'm going a little faster. So in case you have any questions, please start typing in Q&A so that we can get an answer. Uh, First, people when they carry a myth, or rather myth, they carry a interpretation that code is just a guideline to draw my battery limit. Yeah, and that so that I can apply my right standard towards it. That's a right interpretation. But as I mentioned to you, if somebody is thinking that yes, I can go beyond code, I think you are on right track, and it's a right spirit. There's a difference between code standard and regulation. I mentioned to you, regulations are mandatory because it is coming from the legal, because it is coming from the strategic point of view. You cannot skip those unless until you want to risk out your property and life both. Otherwise, regulations are mandatory to follow it. Other side of the coin, let us look at it. I can apply codes and standard 100% to my project. You can't go clause by clause and see that, okay, whether it has been followed exactly the way it has been spelled out in the codes and standard. Because as I mentioned, the codes are generic in nature. It's a general requirement. But specifically for your facility, you need to see what is relevant for you. And that's how the prescription code and performance code comes in play. Code always consider that, okay, that is a only line or baseline for me, but it is not. You can always go for practices which are more than code, which is the best practice. So you can't say that what is written in the code I restrict to there only and I don't go beyond that. Then that's not a right approach. And same as case, people always ask me question again and again saying that show me the clause and tell me whether it is mandatory or not. Therein I don't have an answer, because it's very clearly given. Course is basically create a spirit in you so that you can follow best practices. It's a guideline. Okay, it's a triggering point. It's initiation. But ultimately you need to travel your own journey and come to a destination where you want to. Classic example, I'm sure every facility today in this world, we have a extinguisher in their place. I'm talking about workplace. Okay, there are some residences also do require a extinguisher. But if you look at it, this particular element, which is probably part and parcel of your work life, and when it relates to the codes and standard, then you see that is the connection alive there. Now, when you see extinguishers, there are a lot of mechanical parts available, which you need to know as a end user, as a facility owner. Doesn't matter you have an AMC in place, but I always find that the tag next to the extinguisher only mention about next refill date, and we feel satisfied that I am at peace till next August 2021. But maybe there are pressure gauge which is not working. Maybe the weight is not there in place. Maybe the lever is not working. Maybe the hose is broken. So these are some of the visuals that should be part of the AMC process, and you need to authenticate that along with the AMC contractor that you have. You don't believe on only recharging debts. How this recharging is happening, why this refilling is required. Is it due to the damage, or is it due to the operation in use, or is it due to the low quality of the powder or gas that is filled in? So understand from Ford perspective, what is the refilling requirement given in that. Hydro testing, very, very commonly people don't even know that this extinguisher sitting in my facility needs to be hydro tested every 5 years. You keep on using that extinguishers, maybe 10, 20 years till it rusted. You think that it's a time for replacement, but no, courts have given very clearly guideline how to maintain that extinguisher also. So installation type, I mean, I have many examples and photographs I can share that the extinguishers are hidden under the table or at a height which is not accessible, or not even labeled, or kept in dark. So what is my installation guideline? Again, code answers that also. So I think in terms of maintenance, operation and maintenance specifically, codes and standards are very, very crucial for an end user like you. And the story goes beyond. Not only just extinguisher. When you talk about the fire system as such, there are a lot of systems, equipments are available. So when it comes to a design stage, it is very important that you need to know your design application. You can't have a system where the wrong system been designed. And there are instances, a transformer has been protected with the sprinkler system. Ideally, it should be a spray system. So people don't know the difference between water spray and a water sprinkler systems. And that's how you don't involve yourself in understanding the code interpretation. And that's how the failure gets started. Installation, codes of practice, what is it? When code is talking about 1.2 meter maximum height for an MCP or an extinguishers, there is a specific meaning to it. Unless until you know the purpose and meaning of it, you will not allow a contractor to install at a height which is more than 1.2 meter. So you must understand what is my installation standard when it comes to fire and life safety. Operation, I mean, you have a lot of sprinklers which are hidden. There are detectors which are above the false ceiling and the ceiling cannot be broken. There are a lot of pumps where you cannot get an access. So what is my operations requirement? When I'm going to be maintaining and I'm going to be owner of the systems, do I consider maintenance part, operation part also during my design and installation stage? And you only get a surprises when you start maintaining system after 4 years, 5 years. Oh my God, this is not accessible. This is not functioning, and that is going to create problems. So it is very, very important that you need to look at the aspect when it comes to codes and standards. Also, it relates to safety. What are my guidelines? What are my standards? Whether it's sustainable or not. when you have ventilation, illumination, or maybe vibration, or maybe noise, what is my limit, permissible limit by codes and standard? Is there any way that I can monitor it? Is there any way that I can check it? Is there any way that I can control it? Is there any gases that are available in my laboratory? Is it harming? Is it toxic? How do I control it? How do I measure it? Again, the codes are very spelled out very clearly, where you can actually get an answer and start involving working with vendors. Unless until you take an interest, pain in understanding the codes and standards, vendors are not going to support you. Because not necessarily that even vendor that you engage also is well versed with the codes and standards and practices. Do not assume that the person that you engage is also well versed with it. And I can tell you simple example: extinguishers. Ask him whether has he gone through IS 290. May not be. Yeah. Does he know the extinguisher standards? May not be. So these are the questions that you need to ask yourself. Security is a disaster. I mean, you can see a lot of railways, Indian railway stations, where X-ray DFMDs are functioning there without any maintenance. We don't know the purpose of it. It's a dead investment. So do not invest on a equipment or a system which you do not have, which you don't find a purpose for. You can't have only X-ray when there's an accident happens, or you can't have a DFMD when there is a theft happens. You should know what is my operation requirement, what is my maintenance requirement. If you don't deploy a resource attached to the DFMD, the DFMD has no meaning. And that's how it has happened in this part of world. So get the understanding, what is my risk? I mean, there are many facilities that I see where bollards are there, but they are not being used. People don't know because they have been never used that bollards in last 5 years. And if you ask the security officer, what is the real meaning of this bollard? He may not find answer because he just joined this company 1 month before. Yeah. So you need to get an understanding in every stage, where it could be design, installation, or operation and maintenance. And operation maintenance becomes very, very critical, because ultimately you are the owner of the facility and not the AMC guys. I have a lot of pictures. I mean, these are all real pictures. It's not just Google photographs. These are out of my audit projects. But I can tell you, you have a lot of pain in seeing those pictures. You see a extinguisher, you see a fire alarm panel which is not accessible, which is not even, cannot even see it, not even connected, not even charged, do not have batteries. A hydrant you need to really find behind the trees. Extinguisher you need to really find behind the table. Manual call point, you can't even operate. People don't know what is this break glass. The glass is almost broken. Walls have been closed. There are sprinkler systems attached with the wall and they are kept closed. There is no water inside the sprinkler systems. So these are the surprises that you see on the ground. Only the challenge here is ignorance. People do not know the principle of operation. People do not know the purpose behind having the systems, and that's how the gap starts. And that's how the vendor start taking the disadvantage of those gaps that you have. So it's very, very important. Codes and standards are really going to be important. But sir also mentioned about the company standard. I mean, time has come now. In fact, there are many good companies, I would say, who have their own brand standard. And what is brand standard is basically a gist of all the requirements which is coming from the regulations, the codes, the practices, and knowing your risk and arrive a certain battery limit for your facility. And specifically the big brands which have multiple facilities, they can see only advantage by generating their own brand standard. Like hotels, hospitals, schools, multiple locations, banks, they can come up with their own brand standard, which is going to be more than or above than codes and standard available. Of course, rules and regulations are inherent of it, but you can always go beyond it, develop your own brand standard so that you see uniformity in all the safety. Whether you walk into Mumbai or whether you walk into Kanpur, you have the same smell of the safety. Second component which I want to talk about here is the project specification. I mean, you can always have a lot of codes and standard, but you may not have that right resources in-house. or you may not have even time to spend on that in understanding and going through clause by clause or this. And it is not even expected to go through that. But it is important when you do a project, it could be expansion, it could be alternation, or it could be greenfield. Make sure that you spelled out very clearly what is my project specification. And it's end to end. It is not just SITC. SITC is a very common term that has been used in the industry, supply, installation, testing, commissioning. But I can tell you with my experience, the last component, TNC, is very silent, because people can see only a supply, installation, certify the bill, and the project gets closed there. Fire alarm panel, it never gets commissioned, never get tested. Pumps never get tested and we never commissioned, never get integrated with auxiliary systems, because we don't spend enough time and give a justice to testing and commissioning and handing over process. And that's the gap of project specification, because you don't have specification written. You don't have anyone to monitor it. On top of it, SITC, I personally feel and I implement is operate, train and maintain apart from SITC. Because you're the one who's going to operate the system. You're the one who needs to be training, who needs to get trained on the systems, and who are the one who are going to maintain it. Doesn't matter you're going to use external agency to maintain it, but ultimately liable is you. You're the liable for your own systems. So what is my specification? Where is my specification limit is ending? So give a thought on this as an end user. It's important. And just to give you a quick um, exercise, which I always do in every week as a retrospect exercise, ask yourself the first question. Doesn't matter your, when I say brand, it's like your own facility or maybe one facility, but you can derive your own brand standard in terms of fire safety security. You can derive your own project specification and ensuring that I have a right quality, I have a adequate quality, I have a suitable quality in terms of safety security. So invest on that. It's a right investment. It's not an expense. And many of the companies that I come across do not know what is brand standard and do not have brand standards in place. They only depend on vendor or maybe maximum consultant, and that's about it. But if you invest on this particular parameter, I think it can really change your organization very well. Second question, do you have a capacity and capability both? When I say capacity, that means your resources, and capability is your competency. Understand technical codes and standards. Don't only ask whether it's mandatory, where it is written clause. Don't look at it. Create a purpose. Involve yourself in each stage, design, installation, and this thing maintenance stage, so that you know exactly what is the code requirement. Is it being followed? What's the gap? Can I ask a question to the vendors? Can I fulfill that at right time? You don't have to wait for fire to happen and then you find that pressure is not enough. You don't have water in the systems. You don't have gas in the extinguishers. You should not wait for that experience to happen with you. Invest on understanding of codes and awareness, and that's a basic one. And last one is my operation team fully understand the standards requirement of maintenance? I gave an example of extinguishers, which is a very easy to understand, but I think there are a lot of complex systems available in and around. It could be diesel pump, it could be electrical pump, it could be sprinkler system, it could be air monitoring device, it could be water testing device, anything that in terms of safety and security. Invest what is the requirement in terms of operate and maintenance. What is there in the codes? What's the practice available? Am I following that or not? What is the hindrance on that? What is the gap in that? And then probably you can set right your system in a way that it will be always operational, it will be always functional, it will be always live to take care of your property safety as such. Yeah. Lastly, I just want to give you a piece of information, then maybe 5 minutes I can take some questions here. When we understand all the journey so far throughout this session about understanding the importance of codes and standard, what is their role, how they can help you, not necessarily that every organization that you see have enough resources to get into it. So you can always get an expert. An expert is nothing but a competent agency like consultant. Typically, there are many companies who engages consultant, but again, just because you do not have clarity or purpose behind engaging consultants. Even consultant doing his role is also not having a clear understanding. It's just a copy paste document that gets over, and that's how the real outcome doesn't come. So when you want to have this kind of an feeling in an organization, whether it's going to be extension of your project or a new project, first you need to get understanding whether the risk is known to me or not. What's the hazard? What's the real hazard? And not in terms of my eyes, in terms of the eyes of the code. Can I interpret right codes? So understanding the risk and hazard is most crucial and fundamental thing that you need to have, and you need to have some expert if at all you do not have that capacity in house. Second is that deriving the specific, because you can get confused. There are hundreds of codes and standards throwing in front of you. You don't know what to follow on your own. Whether this is right or that is wrong, you have absolutely no clarity sometime. So it's important that you take a gist, not a khichdi, but make a nice recipe out of it, which is going to feel your right diet. Yeah. So specification document is the one that is most crucial in the technical projects when it comes to fire safety security. It could be even a simple device that you want to have in your place, just to coming from the dish, or a pollution control requirement. On a safety side, I'm going to give an example. But what is that air monitoring device? How this is going to function? How this is going to monitor? What kind of technology I'm going to have? What is the lifetime? What is the shelf life? What is my resources requirement? Do I have that in-house resources? So invest on getting specification out before you start the project. And then third important is that handholding. You need to have some handholding person, like you can always on your own, right? We have been doing that since childhood. But if you have somebody to hold behind you to ride a cycle, probably your time is quicker. You can become a cyclist very soon. You can create an interest in riding the cycle more. So that is a handholding. It's like a sarthi. In Hindi term, it's called a sarthi. You need somebody who's going to be with you, understand your problems more than you, and till it gets over, he is or she is going to be with you. So that's a handholding who's going to be catalyst between all the stakeholders, because there are a lot of gaps. Architect is talking in different, structural consultant is talking different thing. My insurance guys is talking something. My fire officer is talking something. You get lost. That's the handholding that I'm talking about here. And the last is the training, which is the biggest ignorance gap. Unless until you have enough knowledge, expertise built into your organization, by getting that education, you will not be able to build that attachment with the system that you own. And training is the one, education is the one which will get that gap dissolved. So it helps in many ways. We will talk about training in a separate session only on training, and one of the sessions that we are going to have, but this is very clear understanding. And last and important thing I want to talk about is contractor. When you get a vendor, contractor, supplier, whatever it means, he or that agency must be experienced. When I talk about consultancy, it is a competency. Here is all about experienced. Whether the person is maintaining the extinguisher, has he gone through the IS code? Does he know the maintenance requirement more than me? If not, does he have a checklist exactly given in the codes and standard? Educate even him, or do not hire people who do not have that understanding very clearly. So codes of practice must be understandable by the vendors that you engage with. And he should be expert executor. He cannot come with the problems and then you give a solutions. He should have enough capacity and capability, both in understanding the requirement, in knowing the codes and standard, and getting it executed. Because as I gave an example, if you install a manual call point at a height which is not going to be more than human height, what is the purpose of it? Yeah. So expert executor is very, very crucial for this. And shake the hand. When I mention shake the hand, that means I mention all integrations, which is not given any of the standard, or may not be. You have to really look for in a deep manner to find the clause. But when you are there on board as a doing security or safety or or fire, you have all 360 view in making sure that the system is operational, functional, and talking to and giving the fullest feature of it. Integration, system integration is a missing link. And people always play a blame game that, okay, this is not my responsibility, that is his responsibility. So you need to have an executor who is going to really talking in the same, who is going to guide you and making sure that the system is always live and operational when it comes to safety. Lastly, is very important, taking the ownership. You can't say that you have not maintained or you have not paid me the bill or you're not given this clearance, or maybe there is no site that is available. You have to take the ownership of the system, which has to function all the time. And it should not necessarily should come from a AMC contract. It is the spirit that you carry, that this system is also installed by me. I am also answerable for the system. Doesn't matter the client is going to owning it, the vendor has to be. So if that spirit is available, he is the guy for you. Yeah. So this is what all about this thing. Time is up, but I had a lot of things. One question came in from one person. I don't know the name of the person, saying that what's the difference between on-site emergency disaster plan and disaster management plan, on-site emergency plan and disaster management plan. So answer is very clear. You have a disaster which is beyond your capacity. So disaster can happen in any of the industries, sizable industry. So disaster management plan is little broader term, which probably include your on-site and off-site emergency plan, but also beyond that. But on-site is just basically taking care of your in-house actions or resources that you're going to use in case of disaster that happens. So it's all about preparedness level, how you are going to be preparing and protecting in case of any disaster in-house. So that's called on-site, and there is an off-site plan, and that's how you can constitute the disaster management plan as such. So I hope I have answered this question. What is FOMO and JOMO? I have mentioned in the last session. You can always go to our website and check it out, our last session. FOMO is fear of missing out, where I am looking at outward, I am looking at adjoining person, I am looking at other person, and then taking my decision. And that leads always anxiety. It doesn't give you happiness. It gives you short-term, relaxation, but not never happiness. The second stage is JOMO, which is joy of missing out, where I'm looking at inward. I'm following safety because of I care of myself. I care my life. I care my family. I care of my organization. So that's a more kind of a permanent joy that you create in the organization, and it's a destination. FOMO is a journey. So I hope that answers you, because there is no name who has asked this question. So I've just answered it. Any quick questions that you may have before we conclude the session? Any burning question that you may have with the topic? You can raise the hand. We are more than happy to answer it. If not, link is available. Yes.
Just to announce to the audience that all indigenous Indian standards are now available. You have already
Yes.
given in the chat.
Yes.
All the link has already been provided by him.
Correct.
So all indigenous Indian standards, except those adopted from ISO or IEC. So all Indian standards are available for free download from BIS website. And you can also go to BIS website and try to see the standards under division wise also, like civil engineering, mechanical, electrotechnical, electronics and IT, and chemical for personal protective equipment. Like that, you can go and traverse, navigate division wise also, and see which are the standard under each of the technical committee under each division, and download all of them. And similarly, you or otherwise through a keyword or through IS number. Yes. So you can freely download. Please make use of these standards. Thank you. Thank you, Ahmad. Thank you so much.
I think this is a great tool that is available now. Many people are asking where I can find the IS code. Now it's available free, and make use of those big gold mine that I can say, and spend some time and understanding and increase your level. We have a separate session only on safety compliance on 29th of this month, which is going to be at Saturday 11:30. So those who are interested to understand what is the compliance that I am looking at in terms of fire safety security, that's a deep dive that we are going to have on 29th. So please subscribe it. Link is available in the chat option. This is a webinar series which will continue till entire year. Every Sunday 11:30 sharp we are going to start, and it's going to be a really interesting session. We want to get maximum best out of us, whatever we know. We are going to get the best expert from the field to share their experiences like what we have today, Mr. Pant. So every Sunday you will see some new topic, new guest to share the experience on various topics. So please keep joining us. The link is always same. What you can subscribe for. Spread the knowledge, spread the word in the industry so that you can really make most of it. So thank you so much for your time, all the valuable time that you have given us today. And let us end this session with a national anthem. You can stand up. Thank you so much. See you the next Sunday, 11:30. Thank you so much.